Welcome to the Midwest Mogul Show, where we talk all things business, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into today's episode and make business enjoyable again. Welcome back to the Midwest Mogul Show. We have a guest in here today, Ben Meyer. So Ben, let's do a little bit of a warm introduction. Tell the people who you are, what you do, where you're from, and then we can kind of get this conversation flowing, learn a little bit more about your business and kind of what's up for the day.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Yeah, my name is Ben Meyer. I own and operate M2 Solutions here in Northeast Wisconsin, mainly focusing on acquisitions and dispositions throughout the Northeast part of the state. And we've been going heavy in that now for just over a year. We have sold a couple properties to Carter as well as other investors too, but mainly focusing wholesale right now with everything that is going on with the market. We did just burr out of a property over in Beaver Dam earlier this year.
Congrats.
And we do have a flip that is contingent on the market right now in Waupun as well. So things are going along. We have made some mistakes and learned the hard way from those mistakes, but it's sometimes that's the best way to learn, in my opinion. But
exactly. And so what I wanted to ask you, what I was actually thinking about this morning before you were coming in is, so you've had the experience wholesaling. You know how that goes. You know the processes, the average profit margins, whatever the case might be. Compared to your flip house or flip houses, burr properties, what one is a little bit more desirable as of right now in your mind, at least if you're thinking through things?
Right now, I would definitely say the wholesaling aspect is more desirable, strictly based on return on time, right?
I agree.
Just to give you a breakdown of the flip that we currently have in the market. So we're gonna make about the same amount on this flip that we would on a typical wholesale.
Okay.
Strictly because, well, number one, we bought it for too much money, and number two, interest absolutely ate up our profit margins.
Yep.
So on wholesale deals, you completely cut out the interest part of that equation, and your return on time is extremely, extremely shorter. So
And it's way easier. That's what I would say.
It is. It's easier depending on your skill set, because I truly believe when you get heavy into the wholesale aspect of real estate, it completely changes to sales and marketing business compared to real estate. Yes, it definitely helps to know real estate, and you do have to have some aspect of how things function, properties, deeds, title, those kinds of things.
Correct.
But it is very, very heavy in sales and marketing. Wholesaling in itself is a sales and marketing business. Personally, I truly don't believe it's a real estate business.
Correct. You're pushing paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you take a guy that is in real estate, that owns like a rehab company, has been fixing houses up his whole life and saying, oh yeah, I'm just going to get into wholesaling, he's most likely going to fail because it's sales and marketing.
And that's where, like, at least in my personality type, and I'm going to ask you on your side as well, but my personality type focuses more towards, Joe, are you in here?
Man, you weren't joking. We really can't hear anything.
But my personality type more so goes towards the sales and marketing. Like I can't stand being out on the job sites doing stuff. And recently, like this week specifically, yesterday we were at properties all day working. Earlier in the week, we were at a property all day working just to get them done. And that's sometimes what has to happen with the flip side of things. And even with rental properties, it's not the most fun, but like you have to get it done. You're bleeding money as far as interest rates go, so on and so forth. But have you seen, at least from your side of things, like after experiencing the flips, the rentals, everything like that, is there a certain joy that you get in, like, kind of the central focus of the podcast is how to make business enjoyable again?
Right.
So it's like, do the things that you like to do, try to avoid the stuff that you don't like to do as much as you possibly can. So in your mind, and then in the upcoming weeks, months, whatever the case might be, what is that central focus going to be for yourself? Are you going to still look for more flip properties, or are you going to just solely focus on wholesaling? Are you going to look for more rentals, Airbnbs, whatever the case is?
Yeah, so my main focus is actually making this hustle into a business and becoming an operator rather than a hustler, correct?
Yeah.
So what that takes is a system that runs by itself, that is no longer a job. Currently, it is still a job for me, correct? So I'm the one doing acquisitions, I'm the one doing dispositions, and in the wholesaling space, you can make that a business. So that is ultimately my goal would be to put somebody in place to be doing the acquisition side, somebody to be doing the disposition side. Then once we truly create our own inventory, which is essentially what wholesaling is doing, you're making your own inventory, then you can pick and choose which properties you would like to burr out of, like to flip if it makes sense. So let's say a property comes into our ecosystem and they're ready to go and we can pick it up at 60% loan to value. And we don't have a flip department. It's just two guys and we're going to put subs together. Well, if all of our time and focus then falls off of the acquisition side,
correct,
and we still have a complete lead flow coming in of 30 to 40 leads a week, we can no longer attack those leads and now we're leaving money on the table. So with that being said, I would like to get to the point where we have a department inside of our company that solely focuses on, hey, these numbers work for a flip. Let's say our flip department head of operations name is John. Hey, John, we're going to run with this one. Go ahead and attack it. Here's the budget. Here are guidelines. This is what we want to make on the property. Go ahead and do it. So to answer your question, that is the plan going forward, is to establish enough lead flow and inventory where we can pick and choose, which, as you know, is very difficult.
Oh, it's so difficult. That's kind of the same thing that we battle with to this day is, and even when you decide to flip a place or keep a place as a rental, and specifically recently, this is more an experience that we've had is you might get a short-term loan on it. However, when you go over the loan amount, such as like hard money lenders, at least that we utilize, you've probably utilized them or have thought about utilizing them in the past, they go up to 65% loan to value from the repaired standpoint. So if it's worth 200 grand fixed up, they'll loan you 130. We've had several projects recently that we have whatever 30, 35, 40, $45,000 of our own cash stuck into them.
Absolutely.
And you basically are stuck, at least if you don't have a ton of money saved, and then you're like, well, shit, like I can't afford to send out marketing. I can't afford to do all these other things. Like, what is the next step in the process in order to move the entire business forward? And that's what I've learned along the way. Are you going to jump on? Okay. Just plug in the...
Good, man.
You guys can meet one another. Joe, Ben, Joe.
Good to meet you, Joe.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure, buddy.
These ones?
There we go.
What the audience doesn't know is this is actually a recruiting call, and CB Home Solutions
This is a live interview right now.
Currently looking for acquisition managers. So
we're gonna just start growing this team. But no, that's awesome. So Ben, I guess actually now we can kind of segment into how you got started in the space, how you got interested in real estate, so on and so forth. So then Joe can learn a little bit more. I can learn a little bit more because like we had discussed previously, I've met Ben probably a handful of times. We talked over the phone. Yeah. Probably a dozen times. But I don't know the origin story of how you actually got into the business. So fill us in on that.
Yeah. So I initially got started, I call it in real estate, with real estate arbitrage. So essentially what that is taking your business, your LLC or your personal name, going out and renting apartments from another landlord and re-renting them out or subleasing them to your own tenants, whether that be, typically it is on a short-term basis or a mid-term basis. So Airbnb, Furnish Finder, and what really provided that opportunity for me was my current job that I had at the time when I started arbitrage. I worked as a wind turbine technician, and we had a massive job going on with an influx of out-of-state workers coming in that needed housing. And it was kind of just a freak thing. I do remember this vividly. I was driving home back to Michigan for Thanksgiving. I was just watching YouTube videos, and for some reason, some Airbnb videos came up, and I started learning about arbitrage. And I just put two and two together in my head, and I'm like, well, this could potentially work. You know, I have the supply. I know these guys are going to need a space because we're limited with hotels in this area. So I took a chance. I was very new to the area, reached out to a massive landlord in the area, and he ultimately gave me a chance. And he said, yes, I'll let you do
That's
this.
insane.
And I believe I rented 6 up front. So I put down about, what would that?
6 apartments?
6 apartments, yeah, townhomes. Yeah.
Diving head first.
Take some balls.
Yeah, no kidding.
It was a very, very risky
Holy crap.
decision.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to do that, but
No.
dang.
Furnished them all, and I believe I used about $20,000 of my own money before I saw anything come through.
Yeah,
This was
yeah.
before I had any leases or agreements signed with these employees. The really underlying factor that made this work was that the employees and the technicians, they didn't pay for their housing. The company did.
Oh, that's
right.
cool.
And they had a limit to what they could find or where they needed to go. And ultimately, I had a connection. So it was a very freak opportunity, a great opportunity. I just decided to take a rip at it, and it worked. And I made a significant amount of cash within that 2-year project, and then took that cash and ultimately bought my first duplex, which led me into what I call the physical real estate game. Because at that time, I was in the arbitrage space where it's just cash. There's no ownership. You don't really, doesn't teach you anything about real estate, more or less. And have been going headfirst into that since. And when I bought my duplex, I still use that today as a hybrid model. So it's a short-term rental during the hot months, and then it's a midterm rental during the fall and winter months.
Cool.
So in my market specifically, it works really great because it's less than a mile away from the biggest hospital in our town.
Yeah.
So it stays pretty steady, and I've been able to build relationships with local recruiters that are putting nurses and doctors into places. I currently still hold 2 arbitrage properties that have been piecing together so far. I am going to be exiting one of them January 1st when this last nurse moves out. So just don't really intend on putting that cash in place. It makes money. It makes like $400 or $500 a month with the midterm rental, which is all right. But I know I could be using that rent money.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was at the time. It was an under-rented property, and that's the only reason why it's working. And with the midterm strategy, you can charge significantly more because it's furnished, and I provide all utilities. I provide furnishings. It's essentially a hotel, but a house or an apartment.
Yeah.
So works really great for people that are traveling for assignments: doctors, technicians, welders, blue-collar workers. But you got to find them. You got to know how to find them. So.
Well, and I feel like that would be the most difficult part. Like, because there's the one component of just putting it up on Furnish Finder or whatever. You have that side.
Yeah.
But that's just like one leg on a stool.
Right.
So if you don't have other resources, then you can be, like, I know with some of ours that we tried doing that, we had one in Wild Rose that was close to a hospital. But we had probably, I think, 1 or 2 midterm rental, like, nurses stayed there, traveling nurses. And it went smoothly. But and I don't know if it was just because mortgage rates were so high, like we weren't, like the cash flow just wasn't worth it. I'm like, well, the return on the actual equity was so minimal that it was better off with that one specifically just to sell it, move on, collect some cash, go into the other properties. But I guess on the short-term rental space, do you see It seems like there was a a huge influx of people getting into the marketplace to do short-term rentals, Airbnbs, midterm rentals, whatever the case is. Have you seen a pullback, at least just from your monitoring of things, or what are your thoughts on that side?
So I truly believe that the market, like we all live in here in Wisconsin, it's not that dense in supply. It doesn't have that big of a demand full time for serious operators to be here. But I know some serious operators that do well. But to answer your question, I think it took a lot of the arbitrage operators out of the game because their profit margins were so small, and they really didn't have a marketing idea of how to get things running and going and truly how to stand out in that space. I think based on how the economy has been moving, that side of the real estate game, the short term, has truly moved towards an experience rather than just a supply like hotels. People aren't going to go over the edge just based on where interest rates are and what the state of the economy is right now. I don't think they're going to go and spend an extra $300 to $500 a week, if they have to stay somewhere,
Yeah.
if it's not a really, really cool experience, right?
Right.
If for like all their friends haven't been there
makes sense.
before, they're going to go get a hotel.
Correct.
Right. It used to be those places were cheaper than hotels.
Yep.
Airbnb used to be, a couch or a bed that was $60 a night, but that just doesn't work anymore because of property values.
Yeah.
Unless
Everybody's charging way more now, and like what I've noticed is you really have to have a property on a good location and a lot of stuff to do around there, or everything's on that property. Whether it's you have kayaks, you have stuff to keep all the guests entertained at the property, or like
Pool table, whatever the case is,
stuff like that. So that's one thing that I've noticed too is if you don't have that and it's just another house, it's not going to be rented out full time. It's going to be hard to get guests coming in and actually renting out the property. And that's something that we've learned. Just
I know that's what I was about to say.
Everything. Yeah,
it's like the amenities. I think of when we were. We went down to. Have you ever been to Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri?
Not,
okay,
no.
so it's. I would put it on your list of
It
things
looks
to
sick.
do.
I saw the video.
It's so freaking sweet.
Beautiful.
But that one, for example, that had kayaks, and you could rent a boat, but it was on the water. You had the pool table, you had shuffleboard, you had all these other things that you could do right there. And it slept a shit ton of people, like 20-some, 30-some people.
Yeah, over 20 people could sit. Yeah, could sleep there
Comfortably, too. It wasn't like everyone was on top of each other. So I look at that and the prices that they're getting, and it's just, I feel like if you have short-term rentals without the amenities, I think you're dropping the ball. And now that I'm thinking about it, even with Lombardi, so we're trying to sell the place up in Green Bay, the short-term rental.
Cam was telling me about that.
Yeah, if you're interested, hit us up.
Drop a comment down below.
2025 draft is coming up.
If an experienced investor is trying to sell you short-term property, it's probably not a good idea, guys. Because if they can't do it, you can't.
Exactly. But with that one being said, I don't think our list of amenities, like it's a nice property. It's all redone. It's perfect. But maybe if we have to keep it, which we might have to, I just think maybe we stick a little bit more money into the things that people could do while they're there, just to add to the stay. So it's a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more appealing. You might get a little bit more reservations. But I'm more than willing to hear your thoughts on that, because it's like we've only had a couple Airbnbs.
And it's tough because it's
short-term rentals.
It's in the city right by Lombardi or Lambeau Field. So that's where
Competition.
The competition
it's
is insane. And when it comes to amenities, you only have so much space.
Correct.
Either it's in the house or on the yard. You really can't, you can't have kayaks, or you can maybe do bikes. Honestly, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Something for people to just check out. Maybe want to bike around.
And there's been so many like free ones that we've had at properties.
Yeah,
that's smart.
So,
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this podcast.
Yeah.
Start creating a list, because I'm like, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Number one, when you said that location, my mind instantly goes to competition and how long that's been a hot spot in a hub just for short terms, because of the boomers that own properties there that just have to put it up.
Correct.
And they can charge $50 a night because they pay a $400 mortgage, where you guys are paying an $1,800 mortgage, and it really doesn't matter about the house, because if people are coming to the event, you gotta really think like what you just said about the Ozarks, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, we're probably going to spend a decent amount of time in this house. We want room to come around.
Right.
It all comes back to the experience. If the people are there just to go to a game, I wouldn't invest in something where it's like, okay, after the game, we're gonna probably go out drinking.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna go get dinner, and then we're gonna go back and sleep.
Right.
So if it is it's a destination for them to come to, but the property in itself is not necessarily the main focus of that experience. So that's what my mind goes back to. Whereas the ones like the one I have is not a destination experience. Like, it is comparable to a hotel, but it's nicer than a hotel. It's bigger than a hotel, and my price ranges are usually $10 to $20 less a night per hotel, which makes sense for a lot of travelers. And the algorithm has spaced it to the top. So and that all comes back to marketing, right? Like with Airbnb, you have to be very strategic in your marketing, and you have to understand price points and look at data, look at hotels. You have to put yourself in their shoes. If you pull up the website and you're looking at hotels compared to, well, this has a fridge, this has a full shower, cool lounge area, that's nice. Oh, it has a little balcony, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's $10 less than a hotel. that's sick. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Right.
That's interesting.
Whereas like in your scenario as an investor, this is the way I think. They're coming in, they're spending upwards of $200 to $400 for a ticket to go watch a football game.
Correct.
Now they're factoring in flight costs if they're coming in out of state.
Yep.
And then they're
Right.
like, okay, this place is $400 a night. That sucks. But I mean, if it's a hot enough spot and the lower priced ones are already taken, you might have enough demand where people are going to come in and they're going to say, yeah, it's worth it. I need something close. So that's a huge factor as well.
Right.
And it's so interesting because I feel like this is similar to what we talked about yesterday. Everything is getting so expensive that even with, like, for us, we haven't, since we bought the place, and we bought that in what year, Joe? Like 21 maybe, or 22?
20. No, it was 22.
So it's
20,
with
22.
But even that, it's like we got we had a commercial loan on it, and we still have the same one, and it didn't appraise for a ton of money. But the loan that we have on it, we can't refinance it. We can't pull out any of the equity because it would just push over. Like basically, the mortgage payment would be so costly that we would cash flow zero. And that's where I'm like, well, shit. What do you do in that scenario? Do you just let the equity just sit in there, or do we try to sell it? Do we try to capitalize on it? What is kind of the best route to go? But
Do you guys make more money on it with the short term than you do a long term?
yeah,
Assuming?
Yeah.
we would. Yep.
Okay. So to refi out of it and pull, you're saying you want to utilize that equity that's in the property?
Ideally,
yeah,
right.
if we could, like that's where, because it's like say in a game weekend, like we had at least up this past weekend for 2 nights, it was like 15, or the payout was like 1575.
Okay.
So whatever that is, $800 a night, or
Right.
roughly speaking.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do
Something
math
like
in my head. So it's like you have that, and that's a huge influx this time of the year, and we're pretty much booked out through January at some point.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then the rest of the year, it's like, okay, you're renting it out for $140 a night or $130 a night or whatever
Right.
the case is. And it's hard to make sense out of that unless you're booked all year or all month long, which is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know the strategy in that sense, or what would be the best route to go. And that's where I always look for advice on that, because I'm unaware and not super familiar with that side of things.
Well, if you're not losing money on it, I'd say, it's not the worst thing to keep. If it's a burden where it's taking up too much of your time and you can't self-manage it, then I'd say, okay, maybe we should look at selling the property.
Yeah.
Being that it sounds like it's making pretty decent money seasonal. If that pays for
that's probably
pays for your money in more, I'd say keep it. And if you could, since it's furnished, that's where the midterm kind of comes into play. If you can find somebody to rent that entire property out for a 3-month or 6-month stint before football season,
That's true.
then I would reach out and offer somebody a discount for a furnished property to just, if it covers your mortgage payment, great. So you're not losing money, rather than risking it and putting it on Airbnb to get it booked for 30% of the month. And then
that's what.
Right.
that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So you're like
Interesting.
barely meeting your mortgage
Yeah.
payment kind of thing.
If not negative.
Yeah, I know,
On
that's-
some of the months.
Exactly.
But now, like, where would you suggest, I guess, going to find these individuals? Is there, platforms where you can, post something or reach out to, someone about that midterm opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way I've done it before is just reach out to hospitals and ask them who are their biggest agency providers, and do you have contacts for those people that organize those? Because there are some agencies that will come in and they will actually they will sign the lease rather than the nurses or the doctors signing the lease.
Oh, interesting.
So those are cool. A good way to get to those is just finding somebody friendly at the hospital, or talking to nurses or people, seeing who's coming in and out of the area. Zillow's a super easy one. You'd be surprised how many people would be open to something like that, where you can negotiate a 3 or 6 month lease. Be like, hey, this is completely furnished.
That's
We'll
interesting.
do this price if you cover utilities. If you don't want to cover utilities, it's going to be this, because we are going to have to pay utilities, but it's completely furnished. So a lot of people I've got, and Jake has too, he's found people off of there that are just traveling for work for a longer stint.
Yeah.
Like I think one was a welder. You'd be surprised, honestly. That Zillow, Furnished Finder, those are the two biggest ones for furnished.
Well, I just think, like, when my parents were building their current house, they ended up having to find a
That's
midterm.
another big one.
Yeah.
And that's what when you were talking, I'm like,
that.
oh
Yeah.
shit,
Or
like that's
when
like
people
you-
have fires or something.
yeah,
like
real
that
estate
too.
agents, insurance companies.
Those are
That's
awesome.
interesting.
Those are
like what, basically. So would you do it in the sense if you were doing that, would you? And this is more just a probably a selfish question, but would you do it off of the basis of okay, here's my monthly expenses, and what if it like for a 3-bed 2-bath house, super nice remodel is like $2,200 a month out of the question or okay.
No, that's what that's what I charge for the bottom of my duplex.
Damn.
That's
Shit.
but
Okay.
Joe,
We're losing
fuck are
money.
we
Yeah.
it's yeah, you gotta but I mean it's all market dependent, right? I mean, you gotta look at comps in the area and really compare it. You'll probably have somebody reach out and be like, hey, can you do 2,000?
Yeah.
You work out something with them, do whatever you gotta do to fill the dates, but I don't think that's unreasonable at all. No, you could
We
get
should.
Yeah.
We
get more
definitely
than
need to look into that.
you could get more than 2 people in there too. If you got a couple
Correct.
coming, in my market specifically, single travelers is
Yeah.
huge. I rarely have a couple. I do have a couple right now, but like the wife works from home and the husband is a nurse or the other way around,
Yeah.
right? Or like the husband's a doctor and the wife works at home. I see a lot of those where in that case, it really only works for one person because
Yes.
only one person's making income.
Yeah.
That's
So-
really, yeah, damn. I'm learning a lot right now.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Because I never even thought about that. And then like we've had it, say for example in the off season, when it wasn't the Packers weren't playing, so on and so forth. We just had the issue of kind of like Joe had mentioned, you're renting it out, but your monthly net is probably a negative.
Yeah.
And I've never really looked
Yeah.
into the numbers that well. But
Usually we don't look at for that sole,
Exactly.
sole reason. We're like, yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
exactly.
Probably not smart to do that. But
No, I know. But so, okay, with all that being said, we can kind of transition a little bit because I was thinking about this as well. So in the past conversations that we've had, you were super into, and you might still be, this is kind of what I wanted to get an answer to, but you wanted rental properties, you wanted cash flow, you wanted the ability to step away from whatever that you're doing. You have no obligations, so to say. Is that still the goal here is to acquire rental properties? Is it to maybe flip more houses or do a little bit of both or what's kind of
That is the goal, is to ultimately get the rental income to surpass what I make at my 9 to 5 because I still do have a full-time job. I do this all outside of work. So once I
called
get
in sick today, ladies and gentlemen.
had a appointment,
yeah.
that's a weird doctor's office name. They specialize in
Gut remodels.
yeah. But yeah, ultimately that is the goal, is to hit that rental income number that's going to surpass my job. So if I don't make the sales that I do in the wholesale space, then it's like, okay, I can still eat. I can still live, pay my mortgages, and my rental properties pay for themselves now, and I make some. So like I would be fine, but I'm not in the point where I have enough cash saved up and I don't have the money back for my flip.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the spot where it's like it'd be smart to cut that income off.
Yeah.
And a lot of things too, what good friends have brought to my forefront of my mind is that W-2 gives you access, as you guys both know, to loans.
Yep.
It's a huge stepping point. So I need to utilize that as much as I possibly can for rentals as well. So that is the plan, is to supersede my income that I make for my job, so it makes sense, or get to the point where I have too many deals going on where it's costing me money not being able to work those deals and sell those deals.
Correct. Yeah, it's so interesting. I have so many things running through my mind right now, and that's like I think like to even step back from a W-2 job or a full-time job to go out on your own in any way, shape, or form, I think is a huge hurdle because you have such comfortability with that position, and you can for most people they can do both simultaneously for quite a while. Now, if you end up starting to lose money because you're at that W-2 job, then that's a different story.
Yeah.
But I think for a large majority of even the listeners, viewers, and the people that we know, that's a huge step to take. And I think having the courage to do that is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Because you could be more than comfortable, but not leave for a very extended amount of time. Or you could just have a very pessimistic mindset of, okay, things are going to go to shit after I do this. And then it keeps you scared, which is very interesting.
Yeah. I've talked to other people too that made it. When they know they're good now, they've been doing fine and they succeeded. But they're like, yeah, I wish I would have waited until I hit this number. I didn't think about insurance. I didn't think
Is there a
about
number that
payments.
you have in mind?
Yeah, monthly income
okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the cool thing about wholesaling, right? It's like you can hit that number, but it's not consistent. And
Yeah, that's very true.
It'll
Or
never be
flipping
consistent.
or anything, yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing about real estate, man. Is nothing is truly consistent. I mean, rentals are consistent too, but nothing's passive.
Yeah.
Nothing is truly passive. A money market account is passive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Till the government collapses.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
who knows? That could
I
be
know.
next month. But
And that's where, so we're in the process right now. We're under contract on like an industrial building, a triple net property.
Hell yeah.
That's supposed to be somewhat passive. Now, there might be things that come up, but for the most part, the way that lease is structured is the tenant is responsible for snow, lawn, maintenance. But then maintenance exceeding a certain dollar amount is our responsibility. So if something large would go out, then we would have to pony up the money for it.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm like, well, is that the kind of the new avenue of passive real estate? Maybe, maybe not. But the return, like our return on that, like cash on cash is probably 7 or 8% at the very most until it's so
I was going to say it's
under market value. And it's there's a lot of things that are awesome about it, and there's some things that suck. But I'm like, well, I don't, for a first
Yeah.
sort of like industrial triple net property, I guess
I think
beggars can't be choosers.
I was going to say it's obviously right now it's going to be, we're not making a lot. We're still positive.
Yeah.
But we're buying at such a good price that once the lease term is up, which is 10, 12 years, I guess, from now. But once that's up, the property value is going to probably be double.
Yeah.
And then also the leasing is going to be probably double too. So we're looking at a really nice long-term kind of investment opportunity for us with that one. And I think regardless whether you're buying it and you have just kind of lower rents right away, doesn't really matter. Either you're paying it now or you're going to pay it later.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot of properties out there that have that triple net that you're paying over $1 million just for that. And you might be breaking even with the interest rates and everything right now, just because getting loans is going to be hurting you the most. I think that's where pretty much everybody's money is going when it comes to just trying to figure out where are the numbers at. Is it going to make sense for us? Are we going to be, positive, negative?
Yeah.
So
That's so interesting.
But it's definitely going to be the most passive because the tenant is going to be taking care of all the maintenance, all the other stuff, unless, there's something major. But other than that, there's really not much else that you have to really worry about, which is kind of nice.
Well, and if it goes well,
yeah.
like then it's like, okay, shoot, let's make this the primary focus for at least rental property wise, because we kind of have a mixture of miscellaneous crap.
Right.
But for you, Ben, what does, like, you're looking out at the future and you're looking at building the flipping company, the wholesaling company to become more consistent, so on and so forth. What does that goal in 10 years from now, we'll say, because you're young. How old are you? Tell the camera. Joe, he's younger than you.
Damn.
I know.
I just turned 23 in July.
Is that
Yeah,
insane?
shit.
His voice is fucking deep.
Disclosure, he's lying. He's 35.
No, but so you're 23. So in 10 years, 33? Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That is insane.
It's going to be here.
Yeah, I know. But like 10 years from now, with the experience that you have, like that's the one thing that so many people discount is for 23 years old, like that's a crazy trajectory already, at least in my opinion, because 5 years goes by fast, 10 years goes by fast, 15, whatever the case might be. But in 10 years, you can accomplish a crazy amount. So what does, if you've ever even thought out that far, what does that look like from your perspective?
Like at the end of those 10 years, what does that look like?
Yeah, what is it? Certain business goals that you have in mind, family goals, or like what is the future outlook of everything look like as far as, okay, am I going to have a team in place? Am I going to have this type of property, or are you still kind of trying to figure it out?
To be honest with you, I haven't thought that far out. just really trying to put.
Yeah, I mean, he's 23. Come on, cut him a break here.
That's what I'm just middle aged now.
Realistically, like what I think could happen and anything is possible, right? Depending on how hard you want to work. Realistically, I would like to have a systems oriented business in the acquisition and disposition space, as well as a portfolio of multifamily.
Okay.
That is paying for itself, that you could then sell accompanied with a sales and marketing business like a wholesale company.
Yeah.
People do buy them. People have exited them for 8 to 10 million, some bigger, some smaller. But ultimately, in 10 years, I could definitely see that being a possibility, having a significant amount of employees and then a decent sized portfolio as well. So that's the thing too, is if all goes well, I really just want to tunnel vision down with the acquisition and disposition, really make good relationships, and be the go-to company for that, then be able to take that cash and invest it, whether that is in maybe a fund where you're just getting a certain percentage return,
correct,
and then build another department inside that company that chases commercial deals and then ultimately holds some of those. So
it is, there's so many different avenues that you can go, and that's where
absolutely,
like Joe and I have had this conversation, because it's at certain points, like it's probably due to like what some might consider burnout, or like you just get so sick of doing the day-to-day or being in it or going through the stress and the shit.
Where the money's made.
Exactly. Yeah. And like getting through that, there's something to be said about that, but still there's certain times that I'm like, and it sounds terrible to say this, but like, what's the point of doing all this shit? And then you get back into the reality of things the next day, or even a couple hours later when you're not in that mood or particular mindset. And I always think it's like, what's the ideal business model for my personality, my lifestyle that I would like to have, and what can I put in place today in order to do that? And for us, like one of the key hires was having Joe come on and do a similar thing to what we do to this day. Right. But what I thought with adding another person is like, okay, there's so much more risk, there's so much more responsibility, so on and so forth. But the trajectory of any business is insane. Yeah, and that's where anyone who's looking to hire, even like I've had conversations with Cam, and I'm like, Cam, you like bringing someone on is not going to hurt you. Right. Especially at the point when you're trying to do everything yourself. Like it can only help you try to grow a little bit more, free up a little bit more time, and then you can do the things that actually generate a lot more revenue. Yeah. Versus going to Menards or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever the case is to pick up material. You're actually out sourcing deals, talking with homeowners.
On your business, the exact business. Yeah. Right. Going from hustler to operator. Yeah. I think that's what right now, like we all have jobs. Yeah. Like we can't, it doesn't pass the fishing test. No. You guys ever heard that? Exactly. Yeah. That really hit me. I don't know if I saw a clip on Instagram or sometime too, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, I got a business. No, you don't. You have a job. Yeah. Because if you leave, it collapses. Correct. So you just have a really, really time-consuming job.
High pain. It could be high pain.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's like, and I think so many people are in me too. I'm guilty of this. It's like you might enjoy the day-to-day of like the stress and the hustle and the miscellaneous shit that comes with but to go from that point to a business owner, I always wondered what, like, other than hiring the key people and getting the right systems and processes in place, that maybe that's all that it takes to breach the gap. But even I think your mindset component of, hey, this business is no longer reliant just on myself. Yeah. And I think for me to get past that is like, that's probably something that I struggle with, because I'm like, I don't freaking know. Yeah. Like it's being able to let go of something that you spent so much time, energy, and effort and like a majority of your life working on, then it's like, oh shit. Right. Yeah, I'm no longer useful. Right. You like lose a sense of purpose to a certain extent.
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot too. And I kind of think back to it, like the simple things like we don't think about that people are doing, that applies to every aspect of your business, right? Like there's people out there that will do sales calls that enjoy it more than you, number one, and can do it better than you. Right. Correct. Is that going to cost you money? Yes, but ultimately you buy back your time. I don't know if you've read the book by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time.
I haven't. I've heard of it.
You would I just finished that book.
I know I should.
And you guys would love it. The models and everything inside that book are tremendous. But ultimately his main saying throughout the book is don't hire to grow your business, hire to buy back your time, because ultimately you're the one in the driver's seat. So then you can work on your business and implement that. And it's not easy. I mean, making hires is not going to be easy. I can't really say anything because I've never hired anybody, subcontractors, yes, things like that. But I think of it in like in the acquisition space, right? Like, okay, first I'm gonna hire some callers because I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's gonna take up too much of my time.
It sucks.
And
It's such a miserable process.
Don't even want to talk about it.
Then you think past that, you're like, okay, can somebody, like, it's hard to think about. It's like, can somebody actually make these calls and lock up contracts? But yeah, man, people do it all the time, every single day. There's no reason that you can't. And a lot of people want to do it. It's just finding them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, like, to get out of that day-to-day kind of monotonous, I guess, pattern that you kind of go through and get to the point where you're the CEO of your business, like, you have to get the right people to take over pretty much all the day-to-day tasks that you do on the daily basis. That way it'll allow you to then have time to step back and literally think of all the big pictures. Where's the company going? What are the big moves that need to be implemented? And then telling those individuals, okay, this is where we're going next. We need you to kind of do this and that, and start directing, your employees in that path to grow the business. And that takes you out of that pretty much where you can kind of step away, and take a couple days where you're not actually in the office. Everybody's doing their job. Everything's still getting done, but your only responsibility is to push the company farther forward in that next level that you're trying to get to. So that's kind of where, it's tough. You have to find the employees, but I think, hiring fast is something that needs to happen. And then, fire slow kind of thing where, okay, let's figure out why you're kind of having these issues. If you still can't get it, we're gonna have to let you go and find out, move on to the next person. Because the only way that someone's gonna be able to find out whether they're capable of doing the work for you is actually doing the work and trying to train them in the right way. So having those systems, those processes set up for them when you do hire them.
SOPs. Yeah.
So,
And that's like, so I never realized how time consuming it is to build out like what's up in here and then putting it on paper. And then even like when Joe started with us, I'm like, holy shit, like this is insane. Like teaching someone who has, and Joe, you had a decent amount of knowledge, but nothing
right. I just had
more than average
than
the average person. But going from nothing to where you're at today, it's like, holy shit. Like that's, it's so much time, energy, and effort just to do that. And that's where, and I've told people, try to start building out some sort of systems and processes and procedures and everything like that. So you have a basis to go off of. And then when you do make the first hires, or you're looking to add people to your team, then you can just plug them into the already working system, or they can learn from past mistakes you made or encounters that you've had.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, I don't know, like business in and of itself, it's very, very interesting because I don't think anyone, you could be in business for 50, 60, 70, 80 years and still not master the craft.
Right.
You can always get a little bit better. You can always push to achieve that next level. But nonetheless, there's always new things coming up. But what's on your table? What's on for deals? Anything in the books right now? Are you just working on selling stuff, or
I
we
bet
can bring
you'd like
back?
to know, Carter.
Are you trying to buy a deal here today, or
I
what's
got a couple
going?
deals. Want one in Stevens Point, Sheboygan? What do you want?
Yeah, Joe does need to get some sold. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We got a couple on the plate right now. We've got a ranch that should be under contract next week, and a plot of land up in Green Bay that I have an offer call today at 2 for. So those are the two big ones
that's
right
insane.
now.
I told them to reach out to, and this won't release for probably like a week and a half or so.
Yeah.
I told them to reach out to Shane because Shane,
Yeah.
like that would probably be a good resource because he does do development as well. So that he might be able to hook something up there.
I need to read. Just remind me, I should probably reach out to him for that one deal that talking to that owner with the farmhouse
Yeah.
in Nina.
Yeah, no shit. That's probably not a bad idea.
I didn't think about that. All right.
But
Good
yeah,
ideas
there's
on this
I know
podcast.
that's what I was saying. It's like we're just talking, shooting the shit, and then
I need to start writing this down.
I know. That's what I was like when you were talking before, and we were going
Yeah.
over the Airbnb stuff. I'm like, shit, I should have a notepad in here because I'm not really like you're.
Watch the podcast.
I know. That's
Yeah.
hey, I edit all of it, so like when you're saying buy back your time, I'm like, yeah, fuck, I have that.
Yeah.
I have to do this. I have to do the thumbnail. I have to
edit
do
this all
everything.
myself.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, it's probably not the best time spent, but
Hit up Anthony Scott out of Neenah, dude. He edited my videos, just the short couple ones
Yeah.
I put on YouTube of when I went and walked the properties after I closed them.
Yeah,
The one
yeah.
at Beaver Dam and Waupun. Anthony's the shit, man. He's a stud. He could definitely edit this and splice it up and whatever. But
when it doesn't, my issue is I'm like, oh, it doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that.
Yeah.
But then you keep adding stuff to the plate, and then
Yep.
like you're always chasing the next thing, which is overwhelming in that sense. But yeah, what questions or what things are you currently struggling with?
I say
or nothing.
sales. Yeah,
Sales.
sales is always a struggle for sure. Objection
How so?
handling. We got a lot of leads coming in, a lot of retail leads,
Yeah.
that aren't super motivated. So whether that's putting a lead manager in place to siphon those out and get motivation right to me to close them, maybe could be a possibility, but it takes time. Like you guys know, I mean, it takes a certain amount of leads to get to a contract to then close. So
Right.
yeah. I'd just say sales in general.
Yeah. When you say retail leads, is it just based upon what the owner is initially telling you over the phone, or what is the qualification to be considered a retail lead?
They want retail price at retail comps. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there any sort of underlying motivation or not really?
I mean, ultimately, I think there is because they told
Yeah.
a foreign cold caller that they'd be considering selling their house. You know,
Oh my gosh.
so there's some motivation there. A lot of it is just maybe I can get a sucker to pay me,
Yeah.
110% loan to value on this
Yeah.
house, which ultimately we aren't going to do. So, yeah, those are definitely discouraging. You're looking through the notes, just like Zestimate, asking price, Zestimate. Oh, jeez.
Well, and on that, this is the first one that I've had in recent time. We had an online inquiry on our side, and the guy's like, oh, you're something about like a hedge fund buyer. And I said, I wish we had the amount of money a hedge fund has, because I said, we're looking for a deal. I said, if your property doesn't need work, if it's in perfect condition, then we're probably not your buyer. And then he's like, oh, yeah, probably not. Then he hung up the phone. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and it sucks because you're like, that costs money.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
costs
like
money.
There's a certain threshold, and that's what I got a call yesterday from a pay-per-click lead. It was just like a wholesaler, like, hey, like a new wholesaler, clicked on the lead, probably cost me $50.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Fuck,
that's
just-
a lot of people
yeah.
don't realize, man. Like
Oh, it's so
sales in this
expensive.
industry is very, very expensive. Yes, commission is a lot more than
Yeah.
car sales or like insurance sales, but leads are extremely expensive, and they're not as consistent as insurance or as cars. So
Well, and to your point, in what I've started doing recently, because I have a real estate license. So like when I went on that appointment for that house on 8th Street in Fond du Lac, the initial thought was, okay, we're going to come in here as a home buyer, so on and so forth. But when we go out on the appointments, we're always quoting a cash price, some other options than I always quote a listing price, roughly speaking, an as-is listing price. So generally speaking, and I always have the conversation with the owners, you're going to get the most amount of money if you list the place for sale. I said there's no doubt in my mind about that, because I'm one person. You're probably going to have it exposed to 500, 1,000 people. Chances are someone will be willing to pay more than me.
right.
Now, after commissions and fees and closing costs, everything like that, will it still be more? Probably, but I can't say for certain. It's a speculation. But with that, we've been like this, even this past year, I've probably made in commissions, whatever, $30,000, $40,000 just from leads that would have otherwise been junk.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a right to the top line revenue of, hey, this is a legitimate thing. It doesn't necessarily take that much more time, but it's a legitimate lead that you're already in the door. You can convert them or transition them over to a listing, and whatever, maybe it's another couple hours of your time, but still you're getting,
You can monetize it still. There's still an
and
exit
you're getting
strategy.
a shit ton of money for the very little work you have. And if you price it effectively, and the prices that I'm quoting the homeowner compared to our cash price, it's $30,000 higher, $40,000 higher.
It's a significant amount.
But if another agent came in potentially, they might have listed it for $15,000 more. So it could have sat on the market versus my pricing, it sold immediately. And that's what happened with the Fond du Lac one. It's like I told them, like we offered like 121, we listed at 155, and they'll end up netting whatever $15,000-$20,000 more after commissions and fees. It probably will close on a comparable timeline.
Right.
There might be a few more inconveniences, but at the end of it, I'm like, hey, this is probably the smarter way to go. And then even with that one, whatever 2% of 150 grand, it's $3,000 that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So
Right.
I don't know. That's where I always try to, and I've really taken the approach this year of trying to monetize every single opportunity you get, because otherwise you're just bleeding money. And if you're spending a shit ton in marketing, and we've had that a lot in the past, where it's just like you're burning money and you're not monitoring things as well as you should, and you're not tracking things. You keep spending to try and generate more deals. But even you do more deals, it's not necessarily that you're more profitable because you're spending so much to acquire them.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your experience has been like with that, but that's kind of just a little rant that
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say too. I should really think about that. Of just whether it's referrals or partnering with a realtor. I wouldn't necessarily want to it doesn't make sense to partner on a listing for something like that. Just being like, hey, I know these, at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like this offer is going to make sense for you. We do have an agent inside of our office who will list the house for you on the market, and we can probably get you close to that price. Would that be something that you would want to consider?
Yeah. And I'll push back just for a second. So what if, think about this scenario. Say you got your real estate license, you went under a brokerage, and then you had an agent at the brokerage that you had a relationship with, and you're like, okay, I'm going to just be a co-listing agent on every single one of these. So you're still an agent. You split commissions 50-50, whatever it is. You're like, hey, I brought the deal. You handle the listing side. I can communicate with the homeowner or whatever the case is. So you can get a lot more. And then you're actually the one signing the listing agreement with them instead of trying to push them off to another person. Because at least what I've seen is when we're in experiences with homeowners, and then they're like, whether Joe refers them or someone else, it's a warm referral is way different than when you're in the door with someone. Yeah. So that's where I would just maybe even consider that on your side if time permits. And it's like, okay, you have your real estate license. You can partner with anyone, like down in Fond du Lac, Addison Jones, whatever. There's so many different companies out there that you could potentially monetize it a lot more than you currently are.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I definitely thought about that too. Yeah. I agree with that. It's just ponying up and be like, all right, I'm going to go get my license. Yeah.
Well, I told Joe too, like 9 months ago. So this has been a work in progress.
Summer, I did it. I think I started right before summer, and then I was just busier than heck over summer. And then whole September's been bachelor parties and weddings, and then October's more bachelor parties, weddings. It's like the time that I have is pretty slim. Correct. And then on top of that, now I'm flipping a house, so it's like where I can maybe fit in maybe half hour, maybe here or there, but usually I think it's something else that I could that's actually more meaningful to focus on. So that's kind of the toughest thing right now, and just keep on extending it. So hopefully before the end of the year is done, maybe I'll get it. Well, that's kind of the goal.
But as long as you are taking steps in that direction, because it's, like I said, whatever the cost of the license is, I don't know, $1,000 maybe. Yeah. But still, I think the return that you would get, and then even the resources that you can offer a homeowner while you're there. Yeah. You're not just a one-trick pony who's trying to wholesale it or flip the property. Then you have all these other tools in your tool belt, like some people say, and you can offer wholesale pricing, a cash offer, subject to some sort of seller financing. You can offer a listing price. Like you just have so many more resources that you can help people with. And if you're actually trying to focus on helping them, like you can't advise them wrong if you're just hoping that you can.
Yeah. And who's going to say, what homeowner is going to be like, no, I'm going to talk to someone else. It's like you have all the different options that you could possibly think of. Yep. It's all listed out in front of you as long as you have that connection with them and you're on a good...
That's the point right there is the connection.
You have a good relationship with them, then they're going to almost 100% of the time going to be working with you. Whichever route they choose, you're there to help them. It becomes pretty much then every single deal or every single lead that comes through, you have a solution for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I don't think it matters. Like if you who's calling who. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if the seller doesn't like you, like they're not going to go through with it.
That's true.
How motivated they are, whether it's to list it or just to sell it cash. It's like, if they don't like you, they'll find somebody else.
Yeah.
So you can call the same
And we'll
list.
do the same thing. If we don't like you, we're probably not gonna.
I know.
Yeah.
Not gonna be working with you.
That's the one thing. Joe and I had a conversation recently. Like some owners can be, well, some people, I shouldn't even say owners.
Yeah.
Some people can be dicks.
Yeah.
And it's not even worth the hassle of working with them. Some owners can be extremely, extremely rude, and then it just makes what I've always found, especially on the flip side, wholesale side, even on the residential listing, is there's nothing worse than working with someone who's not grateful or just rude, and they don't care about your time. They don't care about your schedule. They want things done on their timeline or their time frame. And some people are in desperate scenarios, so I get that. But they can act. Those individuals, in most cases, are friendly.
Yeah.
Versus someone who, like, I had a person one time. They called me at.
Oh yeah.
Okay, they called me at fucking midnight on a Friday night. Like my phone, and they dialed multiple times because I had it on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the fuck? I'm getting a call at midnight? And I had their house listed. This is one thing. I'm like, and she was kind of crazy to begin with. I'm like, let's try to avoid this in future.
Right.
But someone had turned off their air or heat or something like that. And she was like, why is someone touching the heat register? I'm like, and I didn't even answer it. And I called her the next morning. And I said, if you ever call me like that again, I said, I'm not helping you anymore.
Yeah.
I said, I will not. I'll cancel the listing. You guys can work with another agent. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I said, first off, I don't want to call at freaking midnight for something as stupid as that. But
Send me a text.
I know. But yeah, it's just, it's so interesting. You have run across so many different personality types and people. But any final thoughts that you have, Ben? Anything that's top of mind that you're like, oh shit, what about this? Or you can ask us anything after the fact, but
This is going to be a extremely important fall, in my opinion. Everything coming up with the election, a lot of people are nervous. A lot of economy's definitely not good. Even with the rate cut, things are still not very good. GDP's low. It just feels weird, to be honest. Like this whole economy right now just feels weird. It's we're seeing some listings, definitely more inventory coming back up, but it still doesn't make sense for a lot of buyers with 3% mortgages to go get a 6.5 mortgage. Maybe at a 5, you know, or a sub 6 mortgage, that makes sense for people that do that. But nothing more than that, man. Just gonna keep grinding, stay on that.
that's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's what Joe needs to take after you. We're going to just fire Joe, hire Ben.
Everything.
I'm joking.
Sounds good. I'll have a lot more time to get my real estate license.
No, but it's interesting what the economy's doing. And I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball. I think we all do to a certain extent, because then we can predict exactly what's going to happen, the time frames for it happening, plan accordingly. But I don't know. I'm just trying to stay as well insulated from downside as we can. Because if we do that and limit the risk, at least the perceived risk, then I think we can try and sustain ourselves through, even if it is a rough for 6 months. Like last year was the greatest,
Right.
but made it through 12 months. So
Yeah.
we can probably do a little bit better than that.
And the nice thing is we are already working in so many different avenues when it comes to real estate, wholesaling, flipping, rentals, where say that economy drops, goes up, whatever, like we're able to kind of adapt and maybe put a little bit more eggs in the rental side, or then put a little bit more eggs on wholesale and just do that and stay away from the flips. So we're not getting caught on, market crashes and stuff like that. So the biggest thing with anything is adapting and adapting fast.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest thing, I think, with the election and everything else coming up. Everybody's nervous. No one knows what's going to be happening. A lot of unknowns. And no matter who gets elected, I think there's going to be some sort of impact. And it's scary, but as long as we have kind of an idea and a plan for which way it goes, I think those are the people that are going to come out ahead and stay afloat through the hard times.
It's also a really good time for opportunity because a lot of people are on the sidelines with cash, even with the interest rate environment, it's risky, right? Like, 'cause nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody was going to happen either way. I mean, either side gets elected, like short term, it's not going to have an effect because their policies still have to go into place.
Right.
Now, granted, if the same party that is in control right now remains in power, it is a lot easier and a lot faster to put policies
Correct.
in place. That being said, it does have a time frame, but it's not going to be instant. Not in the real estate space, anyways. In my opinion, it's if something significant is going to happen, it's going to be 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Stock market's a different game.
Yeah.
Stuff like that can change like
that'll
that.
That's
change
insane.
overnight.
It is
Powell
absolutely.
speaks, lines move.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
So-
I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Almost a little over a month away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like 30.
think so.
Well, I don't know how many days are in October. 31.
31. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so probably like 32, 33 days till the election.
Oh, jeez.
See what happens. See what happens.
Everybody cross
Okay.
your fingers.
I know. Okay, well, we'll wrap the show there. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace.
See you later, guys.
Peace.